Okay, let's continue the lesson. So the second topic is international banking and the international capital market. So example so far considered two countries, home and foreign countries, and two assets. But in reality, there are so many countries and huge numbers of assets. So there is specialized market set up to connect sellers and buyers across countries. Since the early 1970s, the volume of international capital transactions has increased dramatically. It grows much faster than the world GDP. So the main factor of this rapid growth is the liberalization of private capital flows in developed and other countries. So there are four main actors in the international capital market. The first one is commercial banks, second one is corporations, third one is the non-bank financial institutions, and the last one is the central banks and other government agencies. So let's think about commercial banks. So commercial banks the commercial bank is the center of the international capital market. They conduct a variety of financial activities. Bank has deposits of various maturities, both long and short bonds, debts owed to other financial institutions, and short-term borrowings as liabilities. And bank assets consist loans to corporations and governments, deposits with other banks, which is called interbank deposits, bonds, and various other securities. So multinational banks are the banks that operates in foreign countries, home and foreign countries. So such multinational banks also perform activities that are not permitted domestically but are freely encouraged abroad. So multinational banks sometimes operate in foreign countries to avoid the home country's regulations. Companies, so the second actor is corporations. Companies with multinational operations typically use foreign sources to finance their investments. To finance their investments, they sell stock or raise funds through borrowing. It's called debt financing, or by selling short-term commercial paper or bonds. So debt financing is the borrowing from international banks or other lending institutions. So this type of corporations is the second actor of international capital market. The third one is non-bank financial institutions. So non-bank financial institutions consist insurance companies, pension funds, mutual funds, hedge funds, investment banks, etc. Especially investment banks specializing in underwriting corporate and government stocks and bonds. Primarily, they provide advice on measures and acquisitions and facilitates client transactions. So such non-bank financial institutions trade foreign assets to diversify portfolios. So investment banks are becoming increasing important in the non-bank financial institutions. The last one is central banks and other government agencies. So central banks engage in international capital markets through foreign exchange interventions. Also, government agencies engage in international capital markets by borrowing funds from or lending funds to foreign countries. For example, developing countries borrow large amounts of money from foreign commercial banks and periodically sell bonds abroad. So now I introduce a new term, offshore banking. Offshore banking is a business conducted by foreign branch of a bank outside its home territory. So offshore operations of a bank are conducted through one of the following three types of institutions. First one is offshore branches. So in offshore branches, it arrange loans and transfer funds, but do not take deposit. Second one is subsidiaries established abroad. So such subsidiaries are subject to the same regulations as the local bank and not subject to the parent bank's country regulations. The third one is foreign branches. So they usually subject to local and home country banking regulations. So there is three types of institutions of bank, but they have different characteristics. So now I want to introduce three new terms: offshore deposit or euro currency, euro dollar, and euro bank. So offshore deposit is also referred to as euro currency. So this is bank deposits in currencies other than the country of the currency, the bank deposits in currencies other than the currency of the country in which the bank is located. For example, yen deposits in a London bank. So most transactions of offshore deposits are conducted in Singapore and Hong Kong, etc. Euro dollar is a dollar deposit placed outside the US, and Euro bank are the banks that accept deposits in euro currency, including euro dollars. So these three terms is a new word, so please keep reminding. So I want to warn you some. So I want to give you some cautions. So some people consider the euro currency as euro, like the currency of EU countries. But this is wrong. The euro currency is not euro, a currency of EU countries. Also, euro dollar is not euro and dollar. So of course, euro dollar is not euro and dollar. Also, Euro bank is not a bank in the EU, so this is very confusing terms. But please don't be so. Please don't confuse that. So euro currency is not euro, a currency of EU countries. Okay, so there are three main backgrounds behind the rapid growth of offshore transactions. The first one is growth of international trade, expansion of global trade in goods and services. And second one is internationalization of business activities. So these two things are due to the globalization. So globalization makes offshore transactions more global. And the third one is the avoidance of home government regulations and taxes on financial activities. So I also mentioned that the marginational banks tend to operate in foreign countries to avoid the home country's regulations. Like that, so some banks, so offshore banks operates in foreign countries to avoid home government regulations and taxes. So especially Euro currency center is where less regulation and tax on banking activities conducted by foreign banks like Hong Kong and Singapore. So now I introduce the shadow banking system. The shadow banking system is the mutual funds, investment banks, and other financial institutions satisfy the following characteristics. It provides payment and credit services similar to banks, and also it's less and minimally regulated than banks. So why this the shadow banking system is there? So the reason behind the existence of the shadow banking system is the rapid growth of the shadow banking systems. Sorry, again, so this is confusing expression. This was confusing expression. Now I want to re-explain again. The reasons behind the rapid growth of the shadow banking system is that the rapid growth 違う。The reason behind the less and minimally regulated than banks is the rapid growth of the shadow banking system. The reasons behind the less regulated regulation is the rapid growth of the shadow banking system. So because the shadow banking system grows high pace, the regulations did not catch up. So therefore, regulations are less in the shadow banking system. There are close ties to banks. There are close ties between banks and shadow banking systems. Because banks are investors and lenders of the shadow banks. So when shadow banks are in crisis, banks are in trouble. So this case is seen in the global financial crisis. The shadow banks and normal standard banks are close in ties. Okay, this is the end of the lecture. Okay, so far we saw what are international capital market, and we also saw the four main problems in the international capital market. We reviewed the gains from trade, 3 gains from trade. Also, we considered the international capital markets and risk averse behavior. And we introduced in debt instrument and equity instrument. There are 4 main actors in the international capital markets, like corporations, international banks, corporations, non-bank financial institutions, and central bank and government agencies. So we introduced offshore banking and euro currency, euro bank or euro dollar. So we reviewed the shadow banking system. We also considered the reasons behind the less regulated this regulation in the shadow banking system. So thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. So bye.